Well, you knew we were going to talk about this eventually, because yesterday on Elliott Friedman's Saturday Night Headlines on Sportsnet, we had ourselves the scoop, how the Vancouver Canucks could be in a realistic trade conversation with the Buffalo Sabres. Yeah. We're diving into this one more time. As always, the show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out our affiliate page if you want to get some free months, save some money, and support the channel all in the process. Also linked in the description is this video/article on sportsnet.ca. Sabres are showing interest in the Canucks' Elias Pettersson, published by the Sportsnet staff. This uses the video clip of Friedman's segment from yesterday, and the article reads this. It's safe to say trade rumors involving the Vancouver Canucks aren't going away anytime soon. 1 day removed from the blockbuster 3-team trade that shook the NHL on Friday night and saw star winger Mikko Rantanen sent from the Colorado Avalanche to the Carolina Hurricanes, Sportsnet's Elliott Friedman had some new details to drop during his Saturday Headlines segment on Hockey Night in Canada. Talk about a run-on sentence, eh? There was a time yesterday when I thought Elias Pettersson was going to be a Carolina Hurricane. Obviously, it didn't happen, said Friedman. As Friedman wrote about on Friday night, before acquiring Rantanen from Colorado and Taylor Hall from the Blackhawks, the Hurricanes had discussed separate trades for Pettersson or Miller with Vancouver. Friedman added that he believed Martin Necas would have been involved in a Pettersson deal, but not a Miller one. Necas, of course, ended up being sent to Colorado, along with Jack Drury as part of exchange for Rantanen. And that is an idea that I think we haven't really talked too much about, but at the same time, it's not really one of the big things. Like, this is the weird part about hockey video making here on YouTube, or not even really video making, but just kind of the commentary scene about it all. Everybody is talking about trading Pettersson. Everybody's talking about Miller. But now that we have an actual idea that was tossed out there, hey, Pettersson almost got traded to Carolina, and Marty Necas almost got traded to Vancouver, nobody is talking about Necas. Like, the fact is, people are so focused on what the Canucks could have done and how they could have traded away Pettersson that the entire idea of Necas is overshadowed, because now, okay, Pettersson didn't get traded, so we still have to beat this Pettersson thing into the ground. Now we're making this video, and I'm kind of contributing to the problem, but then again, it's like, this is the biggest conversation that I'm seeing. People are talking about Pettersson in Buffalo. People aren't really talking about how Necas was almost a Canuck, especially considering the fact that now he's in Colorado and he actually had points today, so good on him for starting his Colorado scoring streak in his second game. I digress. Let's go back over onto the article here. With the Hurricanes likely out of the equation, is there a new team that becomes the favorite to potentially land Pettersson if the Canucks do indeed deal him? I think those talks continue, and I believe one of the teams that has really shown a lot of interest is Buffalo, Friedman added on Saturday. There are others, but the Sabres are definitely in there. This comes after the Sabres and the Canucks have been rumored to be in talks earlier this season. Back in December, Friedman talked about the two teams during an appearance on Donnie and Dolly, and threw out Byram and Cousins as two players the Canucks could be interested in. Do I think the Canucks have talked to Buffalo? Yeah, I do. Do I think the Sabres have talked to the Canucks? Yes, I do. Do I think that's the exact combination that they've talked about? No, I don't know that. I could see Vancouver being interested in those players. I can see Buffalo being interested in Pettersson. That last part is from Donnie and Dolly from a few weeks ago. But when you think about the Pettersson-Buffalo talks getting reignited from Saturday Headlines, now we're seeing a little bit of panic, I would say, from many Canucks fans all over social media, in particular Twitter. You know, I get most of my conversational flavor from this market on Twitter, and a lot of people are starting to freak out about the idea of Pettersson getting traded in some sort of a deal involving a Bowen Byram and involving another forward. It seems like a given that Bowen Byram would be a Vancouver Canucks target because, hey, the Canucks need defense. The Canucks also would be taking advantage of a Buffalo situation that has too much defense. Sorry, but Samuelsson, Dahlin, Power, Byram, they've got so many guys that are locked in, and they could afford to maybe lose one of them. Probably Byram, because he's from Cranbrook, BC, and a lot of people here in Vancouver have been thinking about the idea of Byram being a Canuck for a long time, but it's not just going to be Byram, right? Like, you can't just do Pettersson for Byram. There has to be another forward coming Vancouver's way. And this is where we dive into some of the other talks, because a lot of people are kind of freaking out, like, oh, If it's Dylan Cousins, for example, and Byram for Pettersson, the Canucks would lose the trade. It's got to be for Tage Thompson, and it's got to be this, and it's got to be that. And here's what I'm kind of thinking about. If it's Dylan Cousins and Byram, do I think that's a fair trade? Honestly, I'd say that Pettersson is probably a bit better than that. When you think about what Rantanen just went for, Marty Necas and a bunch of draft picks, when you think about Carolina evaluating Pettersson higher than Rantanen, okay, all of a sudden you have to think about a package that is better than Marty Necas and a bunch of draft picks. Bowen Byram, I'd say, while he does have top 2 potential, I do think there's room for a little bit of doubt at this point in his career. He has not taken as many steps as you think he might have been able to at this point. He's no Rasmus Dahlin, I think is the point that I'm trying to make here. He's a good defenseman, definitely, and he's still young, so he can get better. He's only a year younger than Quinn Hughes, after all. But Bowen Byram still needs a little bit of work. Okay, that's fine. Marty Necas, though, is like a 90-point caliber guy this season. And he's been doing pretty well in Carolina to kick off this 24-25 campaign. Obviously, the start of the season, he was the best player in the league, for crying out loud. Is that equivalent to Dylan Cousins and Bowen Byram together? Honestly, I'd say that Dylan Cousins and the uncertainty in his development and how he is sort of stagnated doesn't bode well when thinking about the idea of a trade. And you can say the same thing for Elias Pettersson. Oh, Pettersson stagnated as well. But I think there's a lot more optimism from Vancouver Canucks fans that Elias Pettersson is going to become better again, that he is going to get back to 100-point form, more so than there is certainty that Dylan Cousins is going to get back to a 70-point form and maybe even reach an 80-point or a 90-point form. Cousins, I feel there's been a lot of insecurity with the way he's developed the past year and a bit here, so ultimately, we're seeing a lot of panic. Is it fair? You can debate either way. You can say that, hey, why do Canucks fans have the right to demand more? How can they say that Dylan Cousins is declining, so he's not that great of an asset, when Elias Pettersson is also declining? Well, it just boils down to how certain you are that they can bounce back. And Pettersson, I'd say he has more fans around Vancouver and around the NHL comparative to Dylan Cousins, so I think it's a reasonable take to make in this situation. But with Buffalo circling back, man, like, if I'm thinking about what an ideal package would be, honestly, I'm thinking about some of the other guys that have been tossed Vancouver's way in trade rumors. I'm thinking about Alex Tuch. Maybe Tuch, Cousins, and Byram. Maybe that's too much. If Tage Thompson's name is being so freely thrown around by Vancouver Canucks fans, why is a guy like Tuch exempt from that? I get that he is like a really big emotional leader in Buffalo, but that's kind of what the Canucks need at this point too, right? Good guys that can lead the room whilst providing solid, quality, consistent play. Tuch has been a very good player this year and last year too. On top of a Bowen Byram, if you wanted to say Dylan Cousins is still in there, okay, you can do whatever you want. Tage Thompson, his name has been tossed around by many Canucks fans. Heck, we can talk about Yuri Kulik, who went out there and destroyed Vancouver the other night in that huge comeback victory. He's a young guy too, at 20 years old, who has been reasonably good and very good in the AHL. There are a lot of young dudes that I think can make it work, but ultimately we'll leave it up to the trade guys themselves, the insiders and the GMs, to get our narratives going, because just spitballing random ideas doesn't really accomplish anything, to be honest. Byram, though, he's the main guy. I feel like everyone's talking about Bowen Byram, especially since the Canucks do need defense. I don't know if they would have been able to get any defense from Carolina in a Martin Necas trade, to be honest. Like, they wouldn't have traded away a Brent Burns or a Gostisbehere or something. There's a lot of value there in the Carolina Hurricanes organization. So anyways, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Elliot Friedman reopening the Buffalo conversation and introducing Elias Pettersson potentially as a huge Sabres trade target? What do you think the package looks like that ultimately gets done if Pettersson gets moved to Buffalo? And do you think it'll be a package that Canucks fans will be satisfied with? If it's Cousins and Byram and a pick or something, I don't think Canucks fans would be satisfied with that. Whether or not that's fair or unfair, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But for now, Friedman's scoop has gotten a lot of people talking about it one more time. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.